Our story today begins in a busy gym, where the sound of weights clanking and people grunting filled the air. The symphony of gains and pain. There, our protagonist was working out, remembering it had only been a week since he joined. And during that short time, he had already met a lovely staff member there, a chubby girl, but still charming. Our protagonist was a very focused guy, and on that particular day, he was on the lat pull-down machine. He was giving it his all, showing off his muscle and strength like he was auditioning for a protein powder commercial. That's when the staff member, Sheena, walked up and greeted him.
What you saying, huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Jeez.
She then commented on how ripped he looked. He returned the compliment and credited the results to the exercise he was doing. And like a good employee, Sheena assured him that if there was any issue with the equipment, it would be fixed immediately. At that moment, Koka fixed his gaze on her, Bro's looking at her like she's the last protein bar on earth. Sheena, clearly catching on, confronted him directly, saying she had the impression he stared at her a lot. She asked if he had any complaints, which visibly embarrassed him. He tried to deny it, but she pressed on, finding it strange that he looked at her so much when he had only joined a week ago. Suspicious, she leaned in and told him to spill the truth. She even stressed it was her duty as a staff member to listen to clients, and that if she could fix the problem, she would do so immediately. Feeling cornered, he hesitated, but then decided to make what he described as a small comment. Koka finally revealed that he simply found it curious to see a gym staff member he considered overweight and chubby. Sheena's expression changed instantly. Irritated, she denied being chubby, which brought an awkward silence over the place. Trying to break the tension, Sheena corrected herself, admitting that compared to typical gym staff, she might just be a little chubby. She then asked for a chance to explain, but first made sure to restate that she wasn't overweight. Koka nodded and encouraged her to continue. Sheena began explaining that she had been working there for a year, but 3 months ago she took a second job at a barbecue restaurant. She went on saying the food there was so good that even her gym workouts couldn't burn off everything she ate. Because of that, she confessed, some clients doubted the gym's effectiveness just by looking at her. Even so, Sheena took pride in being praised for her customer service, and again insisted she wasn't chubby. Koka, however, said that didn't matter at all. The most important thing was that he had no issues with the gym. Then, with an oddly serious expression, he revealed his true feelings. To him, chubby girls were the best in the world. Bro didn't just compliment her, he proposed a religion. This man's ready to worship at the temple of thicc. And, well, the statement left her completely speechless. He then continued, saying her body might not be ideal for a gym, but when it came to her specifically, the situation was different. Koka started describing what he appreciated about her, mentioning her thick thighs and her big round butt.
That's what I'm
Bro,
talking
this is a
about.
gym, not your OnlyFans wish list. He then praised her large breasts and slightly bulging belly, which in his view seemed soft and delicate. My guy's describing her like she's a luxury pillow collection. Our hero reflected that those were just the basics, which many people would likely agree with. However, he enthusiastically revealed that what he truly loved about her were her arms. He explained in detail that the way her torso pushed her arms made them look cute, and he loved the fold that formed near her armpit. Bro's attention to detail is so precise, he could work for the FBI. Frustrated, he lamented that many people failed to appreciate the true charm of a chubby woman. To make his point, he asked her if she'd ever seen Western paintings. He explained that many of the women portrayed in famous artworks had fuller bodies, showing a devotion that spanned history. Therefore, he concluded, chubby girls were in fact works of art. Someone put this man in a museum. He clearly belongs there. And he ended by saying that was exactly what made her so beautiful. Surprised by the compliment, Sheena confessed it was the first time someone had ever told her something like that. She mentioned that most of the time, people only bothered her about her weight. Even so, a little embarrassed, she insisted she wasn't chubby. At this point, she said, "I'm not chubby" more times than most people say hello in their life. He then said there was nothing better than having her around to brighten his day. While he was thinking he hoped to get along with her, Sheena, on the other hand, concluded he wasn't a good listener since he kept calling her Chubby. Time passed, and there was Koka once again, just admiring Sheena's beauty. It had been 8 days since he had joined the gym. He felt happy for finding that place, especially because the chubby girl he was so obsessed with worked there. 8 days in, and this man's already clocking in more stairs than reps. On another occasion, while he was resting, she came over and confirmed that he had moved to the area the previous month, to which he added that he worked nearby, so he explained that he immediately looked for a gym close by. Without wasting time, he looked at her in a rather peculiar way, saying he was very satisfied with his choice. Bro didn't just pick the gym for fitness, he picked it for thickness. Soon after, Sheena's work routine continued as usual until she was called by a client asking for help. The woman asked how to use a specific machine, and Sheena promptly identified it as the rotary torso machine. Sheena explained that although it seemed complicated at first, it was ideal for working out the waist. To make it easier, she decided to demonstrate how to use it properly, asking the client to pay close attention. The woman, in turn, thanked her. The first step, she said, was to adjust the desired weight using the pin. Next, one had to sit on the machine, always keeping the back straight. Then she instructed that the thighs should be pressed firmly against the pads. Koka's somewhere in the background right now, trying not to pass out from the words, "a thighs pressed firmly." Then, with her elbows close to her body, she demonstrated the movement, twisting her torso as much as she could. However, the staff member issued an important warning. If the twist was too sudden from the start, there was a high chance the person could end up injured. She then added that over time, one gets used to the machine and learns the proper form. So she encouraged the client to give it a try. And with a long sigh, the staff member finally relaxed after finishing the short demonstration. Now standing, she cleared the machine for the woman, who thanked her again. However, as soon as the client walked away, Sheena sighed once more, but this time for a different reason. She had noticed that from across the gym, Koka was watching her with a rather intense gaze. Bro's got that a National Geographic predator watching its prey look. Uncomfortable, she approached him a bit hesitantly and asked him to stop staring at her like that, as it made it hard for her to focus on her work. And he simply apologized. However, in the next instant, he revealed that, in fact, he wished he could look at her that way for the rest of his life. Forget romance novels, this man's speedrunning obsession, and well, the declaration left her completely baffled, making her question what he meant by that. Confused, the poor girl took his words literally, asking if he really wanted to see her working there until she grew old. He then clarified that he meant he couldn't take his eyes off her chubby body, which made her upset again, insisting she didn't fit that description. Tired of that conversation, Sheena decided to get straight to the point, asking what exactly was the real meaning of being chubby. She explained that she wanted to know what he thought so she could finally prove that she wasn't chubby. Our hero agreed to explain, but first wanted to make sure she wasn't on duty. Sheena, however, reassured him, saying she was on break. With everything cleared up, he prepared to start his lesson. Surprisingly, Koka took her to an area with a whiteboard and began writing what would be the definition of chubby. But before diving in, he announced that first they needed to cover another topic. Then he proposed they talk about why he was so fascinated by chubby girls. However, he quickly reconsidered, thinking the topic might take too long and it'd be better to leave it for another time. But she, curious, encouraged him to go on. She's basically unlocking his TED Talk on thicc. With her insistence, he said that, to begin with, there was something he wanted her to understand. And with a rather disturbing look, he asked her to repeat the phrase, chubby girls are the best in the world." Sheena, however, remained silent, completely indifferent. Seeing her reaction, he asked again for her to repeat it, to which she sarcastically replied, asking if he hadn't already said it. He then returned to the board and wrote that the definition of a chubby was subjective. The answer, he said, was within each person. Our hero explained that this was basically both the conclusion and the premise of his theory. But beyond that, what he personally considered most important was the belly. Of course, it's the belly. To a true chubby connoisseur, that's not just a belly. That's... He emphasized with a drawing that the way the fat showed under tight clothes was essential. And finally, he concluded his chubby girl theory, stating that the beauty of the fat in that region determined the beauty of all other body parts. Unfazed by the lecture, Sheena simply said she understood his point. However, she added that if it had to be put into numbers, their conversation was suddenly interrupted by someone else asking what they were talking about. At that, the two turned and saw a muscular arm appearing from behind a partition. Koka remarked how strange it was to hear a bicep talking. Sheena, on the other hand, concluded that the talking bicep actually belonged to a co-worker. Footnote: the talking arm then revealed it had heard them discussing the meaning of being chubby. And in the next moment, the owner of the arm finally appeared. A woman with an incredibly fit body, a total powerhouse mommy that has chubby fans shaking in their boots and reconsidering their worship priorities.
Damn, what is that, bro?
Smiling, commented that it seemed like a tough topic. Koka, surprised, asked if she also worked there, to which the woman confirmed and introduced herself as Hagawa. The newcomer then asked to join the conversation and jumped in, noting they were talking about how Sheena was cute and chubby. Sheena, in turn, strongly denied it. Finally, she corrected Hagawa, explaining that the discussion was more of a debate on what defines a chubby person, and that it had nothing to do with her, since, in her view, she didn't fit that category. Faced with the impasse, Sheena complained that Koka wouldn't stop calling her chubby, while he insisted that it was his duty to praise her sublime chubby body. Hagawa then observed that neither seemed willing to back down. The colleague remarked that if the conversation had reached such a critical point, perhaps they should find a way to reach a consensus. Her proposed solution was, to say the least, unusual, suggesting that the best way to settle the matter was to let Koka touch Sheena's belly. Hagawa stated that this was the easiest way to resolve the issue. She then admitted the suggestion might be a little inappropriate, since he was a man. Our hero, in turn, loved the idea and agreed without a second thought. He said that to him, there was no problem at all. Bros out here treating belly touching like it's the ultimate quest reward. And surprisingly, Sheena agreed with the idea, believing she'd only truly understand if she experienced it herself. So she sat down and just asked him to be gentle, once again stressing that she wasn't chubby. He, a bit hesitant, asked if she was sure, to which Sheena quickly confirmed. With that, our hero prepared for the big moment, and bowing to her, said that although he felt unworthy, he asked for permission to proceed with the test. His finger slowly approached her belly, and with every centimeter, the tension in the air only grew, until finally, the moment he had been waiting for was about to happen. However, instead of just touching, he pinched her belly fat with his fingers. The guy seemed totally focused, analyzing the texture in his hands, and he murmured something as if in a deep trance. Until suddenly Sheena interrupted him, saying she had never given him permission to pinch her. Annoyed, the girl declared him disqualified because of that violation, which left him completely speechless. Koka lamented that her opinion wouldn't be taken seriously. Sheena, on the other hand, reinforced that in her view, the word of a disqualified person had no credibility at all. With that, Hagawa simply thought about how well the two got along.